Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority is using Google AI to create smarter tolling systems and improve traffic flow for Texans. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American Innovation.
Talkin podcast featuring Terry Pluto. I'm your host, David Campbell. We're taping this on Tuesday afternoon, 29th of April, right? Yeah, it's still April, late in the afternoon. How you doing, Terry?
I am doing well.
I was trying to figure out what we should start with today, and I think it should be the Cavs.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? All right.
Give them, they just drilled Miami. We'll be doing Browns draft till the next draft.
Yeah, let's do it. I thought we would start with, we got a nice, thoughtful email today from Jared Atkins, and Jared lives in Paradise Valley, Arizona. He says, "Hey guys, I was texting with my old Ohio crew as the Cavs were demolishing the Heat in Game 4. Some of my crew felt like the sweep was no big deal and expected. It immediately made me think, are you kidding me? We're all around 50 years old on that text thread and seen a lot of playoff disappointment in our Cleveland sports fan careers. I wondered how many series in Cavs history that we've swept where LeBron wasn't on the team. I was thinking, unless it was the Miracle of Richfield era teams, which were a bit ahead of my time, there were none I could remember. A quick Google search confirmed my thought. That win yesterday concluded the first non-LeBron Cavs team to sweep a playoff series. That's noteworthy. It's been an enjoyable season and a great group of guys. I refuse to think it has to be title or bust. Boston and OKC are great teams and they'll be tough outs. But we're a top 3 team in the NBA and the window is open for the foreseeable future. I sure hope they can figure out a way to keep Jerome. I'm doubtful they can make it work financially. I felt he's been the unsung MVP of the season. Regards, Jared Atkins, Paradise Valley, Arizona, born and raised in Norwalk, Ohio." So I thought that kind of captured a lot of what fans might be feeling today. Terry, what do you think of all that?
Well, I love the historical context because I was trying to think even where they kind of blew anybody out in the playoffs, like winning in 5 games. Maybe there is a period where they did it, but none comes to mind without LeBron. I mean, because you really had to go back, David, to the last time they had won a round in the playoffs without LeBron. It was 93, and then you had to go all the way to basically last season. And because you could say that, because they lost in the play-in, remember? And then they made it, and they lost to New York. And then so last year was the first time they even won a round without LeBron. Which just shows, I used to write too, the Cavs have always been kind of 2 franchises, one with LeBron, one without LeBron. And what hopefully this group will do is it just makes it more, the winning is just basically a real team with, as Kobe Altman says, a runway. And they are in great shape. I know one thing with Dan Gilbert's money, signing Jerome won't be just, I don't want to pay the cash. It will be how they're going to figure out things with that second apron and whatever. And I'm not going to get into all that because I don't fully understand it. We can talk about that as it gets closer. But we know when the team starts to be good, he'll really write a check.
He has shown that. And another thing to consider, I know we don't want to get caught in the salary cap stuff, Terry, but when Evan Mobley won Defensive Player of the Year last week, it kicked in a $45 million escalator.
Yeah.
in his contract. So there'll be that to contend with too. But
That ended up being a better draft than I thought because Cade Cunningham with JB, now there to credit to him, has just bloomed into a superstar. Carried that team because I've watched them play a few times. I mean, they're okay, but they're not. They're way overachieving in my mind. And Cunningham's carrying them. Mobley ends up being the defensive player of the year, and that's fantastic. And Mobley here is in the perfect situation because um, he's growing as an offensive player, but he doesn't have to carry the offense because really, as we saw in the was a game 2 where the Cavs got out in front and then they kind of fell apart. They got lazy on defense, and then they were going. What did Donovan score? Like 17 points in the fourth quarter, to rescue them, and that allowed where uh, Devin could concentrate on other things. He doesn't have to do everything. Where you watch Detroit, I mean, Cunningham is carrying a huge load there. He really is.
And that's kind of what I think has Cavs fans so excited is just the
Yes.
depth and the scoring up and down the lineup. So anyway, Terry, why don't I run through some of the numbers from last night, Terry, and
Sure.
then I want you to I know there's some things you want to talk about what you're seeing
Mm-hmm.
about this team's identity and things like that. So it was 138 to 83. It's the largest point differential in Cavaliers playoff history. It's the second time with Eric Spoelstra as the coach that Miami has been swept, and the third time the Heat has ever been swept. So that's not easy to do. Cavs shot 56.8% from the field and 48.8% from three-point range. The 138 points are a franchise playoff record. They outscored the Heat by 122 combined points. That's the largest point differential in any playoff series in the history of the NBA. And the last team to sweep the Heat in the 17 seasons that Spoelstra's been the coach was the 2021 Milwaukee Bucks, and they went on to win the championship. I kind of pulled some of these out of Chris Fedor's stuff overnight after the game. He's always got some great statistical background in there. What are you seeing? You've been watching the Cavs for a long time, Terry. What are you seeing right now, and what do you think it means for the rest of this playoff run?
Well, the other stat that's amazing is they outscored outscored Miami, I believe, was it 92 points without Darius Garland in Miami. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a staggering thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But 92 points in 2 games without your second leading scorer. After the game, you could tell that I watched a little of the press conference with Spoelstra, and he was just distraught. He said, almost, I guess we were kind of in denial, thinking we could play with these guys. How about that? I don't misunderstand. They're a really great team, but he just never imagined they would be basically humiliated at home. I love the fact they kept those teams under 90 points on the road. That I like the fact that Atkinson got on them after they won game 2 about getting out rebounded, getting outscored in the paint. And they responded because they're going to have to be a tougher team physically as they go along, even against Indiana.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that's what. Just building on that point, Terry. Like the playoffs, NBA players are proud, and they don't like to have their toughness
No,
or their manhood questioned in
no.
the play. When it's the playoffs, people bring it, and to see them just wilt like they did last night, it just
Mm-hmm.
really shows you how deep and good this Cavs team is when it's firing on all cylinders like they were last
Mm-hmm.
night. It was incredible.
Yeah, it really was. And the other thing that I liked is, Jared Allen is I think he's Roberta's favorite player and probably mine because he is so unselfish. And he had 6 steals in the first half. It's almost like he was a free safety on the first play of the game. He read a pass, cut right in front of the receiver, and took it to the house. I
Six
mean, it
six.
was just, I mean, I wish the Browns had somebody to do that. It was an amazing thing. And I'll tell you one to watch when one thing they do pick up when Garland's not in there, and especially when Strus is in the backcourt. Strus really does a good job getting the ball to big men in different ways.
Hmm.
Darius likes to throw them the lobs. But if Strus can hit them on the move with a nice high bounce pass, not just a bounce pass that's got to bounce up high, they call it pocket passes or whatever it is. He seems to get them going at good angles, and I think they go to the rim more because they just know he's so good at it. Strus does have that Miami Heat, winning edge that Kenny likes, and the reason, as we go along, we'll see whether at some point maybe they will have to start Hunter, facing the Celtics or somebody. I don't know. But you could understand why Kenny wants to keep Hunter and Jerome coming off the bench. I mean, the one game, it's game 3. They're down 12-4. The Virginia guys come in, and it's over. I mean, it was just like a scored them like 27-5. Game over in Miami. Over. I'm watching that, and I'm thinking, I don't think they're coming back. I think they're done. And they were just, because also they were just pounding them inside. And I know 3-pointers are very important, but you need everything. When I was before game 2, I remember I went to the press conference, the pregame press conference, and Kenny was already even then beginning up a little as we got to rebound better, whatnot. And I said, Kenny, do you think that teams that are highly skilled, like the Cavaliers, this is a temptation to say we can outscore them or outshoot them? And he said, that's real. He says, but if you really want to win, you got to do both. You have to do both. And what I liked is they were shooting very well in game 3 and 4, and they defended all the way through.
And I was just going to get into that, Terry. I was just looking up. I wanted to see what the score was, but there were 2 things that if you're a Cavs fan, you really have to be excited about.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was. I'm just looking it up right now. 4:27 left in the third quarter last night, and Jovic goes on a drive, and I think Ty Jerome might have blocked his shot. The Cavs were up by like 40 points, and as soon as the play was over, I can't remember if it was Strus or Jerome, but whoever it was started calling for a replay. Like, as soon as the play was, it's like you're up 40 points.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenny was right off the bench too. Kenny Atkinson. He's like, we're challenging that because I think he usually gets the word from Johnny Bryant on the bench, right,
Mm-hmm.
about replays. And they're up by 40 points late in the third quarter of a blowout, and it goes back to what you're talking about, Terry. I think after that game 2, the message was sent is like every possession is 110%. We're giving up no inches to anybody. I don't care what the score is. I don't care what point of the game it is. We're fighting for every inch out there. And that was just one indication of it. Like, who does that?
And also reward them, David. Reward the guy for being up by 40 and tracking him down from behind. I believe it was Strus. And that's another thing you want to. What messages are you sending? It's an old coaching thing. You get what you stress. And now Kenny started up on the rebounding about in middle of February. I mean, that was one of his things. The stats from game 5 are so lopsided, you didn't really get the full force of when you look at the team stats for the whole game of how they own the inside, because it was such a blowout. But I was just so pleased because I'm big on the other the team rebounding and that, because I just know it's coming. It's coming. They're going to be challenged. Indiana will challenge them. It maybe not quite the same way, but I'm watching them play against the Bucks, and I know the Bucks guys are getting hurt or whatever, but they got guys who could score, and Carlisle has really good offensive schemes. He's a veteran coach, and didn't they go to the I believe they went to the Final Four last year. Basically, they were playing the Celtics. They're like a good team nobody knows.
And a superstar
Yeah.
to carry things when it gets rough.
They have Halliburton there. Miles Turner, the big guy, is really growing. I remember when he came in, he could barely make a free throw, and he shoots from threes and that. Neymar always comes off the bench. You got to watch it. He's going to shoot it every time he gets the ball. Like Jordan Clarkson does that. The old days, Vinnie Johnson did that. It's funny. They even tell these guys, he's going to shoot it every time he gets the ball. So the guys kind of go dribbles in towards the rim. Suddenly he veers out. They go, he's going to pass it. Then he turns around and shoots it. You have to stay on those guys. So I'm excited to see that. It's just, look, it's so much fun. And look, Kenny made a really great point after the game. He said, this is what you do when you get the top seed, because you get the guy that had to go through the gauntlet. That's exactly his words, that Miami did just to get to the playoffs and get there with no rest within 36 hours. And you've had a whole week to heal and be ready. You just have to be ready. And he said, and we got, as we went along, I saw us gaining strength. I like that too.
So I wanted to talk about Donovan Mitchell for a second, because this was another moment that, and by the way, check out all of our coverage at cleveland.com/Cavs. Chris Fedor, who's in Miami, has a couple of really interesting pieces. One of them is about Max Strus, and I'm going to come back to that. But the other one is about that long embrace between Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love yesterday, which was just heart-wrenching. If you saw it, Kevin Love lost his father within the last few days. That's why he was gone away from the Miami Heat. And just shows you what a relationship
And on that too, I mean, his dad's had cancer for quite a while, and anybody who's lived in cancer land, and I don't mean that, I mean that is really like if you live in stroke land or dementia land, whoever it is, you just know it hangs on you, because I've been through some of these things. It's always there in the background. And, it's nice sometimes to go play, but then when you're done, it's like, oh, gee, I wonder, what did the latest the PEC tests say? What did this say? What treatment? You go to see them, and it's like the cancer's eating them up in one way, and the chemo's eating them up, and the radiation in the other. And that was wonderful to see Tristan. And they're two old warriors. I mean, that team will always be, loved in this town, whether it's Richard Jefferson or any of those guys. And just like the 95 to 97 Indians, those guys, they didn't win it, but boy, they had 2 World Series, and, oh, Chad OJ's back in town, and they'll, oh yeah, Chad, Chad back, Chad goes back to Louisiana, and nobody hardly knows who he is, really, other than, oh yeah, but it's something special for that, and they will always, the old line will always have Paris from the movie, but it's like they'll always have that 2016, and also just that in that group, and you look at the 2 guys there, I thought they sacrificed probably the most on that team. Because first of all, Tristan always played an unselfish game, offensive rebounding and that. And Kevin was the one, I remember when he joined the Cavs, and there was an interview with Chris Bosh. And in a sense, Bosh said, Kevin is going to find out what it's like to be me. Because Bosh was with the Heat when LeBron came in, and Dwayne Wade. Because originally, they were able to work it with 2 guys. He said, with 3 guys, usually somebody's sort of going to be left out. And then it's going to be, how do you handle that? And that was, and remember how LeBron was tough on Kevin too. Fit in or fit out. I remember that tweet.
Yeah.
Because they were pushing him to defend. Because basically, what Kevin used to do when he was a young player with Minnesota, he would pad his rebounding stats. He just kind of stayed under the rim. But if his man went out and shot an 18-footer or a 3-pointer, he didn't care.
Well, he just stayed under the rim. He was the Cade Cunningham of
he was
Timberwolves.
But he was really apathetic on defense. He wanted to rebound and he wanted to score, and he was on a bad team most of the time, and so they were able to do that, pad his stats. But that's why I think too, the other thing that struck me is the roles those guys played, and they knew what they also knew off the court what people have dealt with during all that time.
Yeah, and I did want to mention, too, getting back to Donovan Mitchell, like when he was interviewed after the game last night, the first thing he said, he spent 30, 45 seconds wishing the Love family condolences on the passing of Kevin Love's dad. And I thought that was really classy. But anyway, getting back to the Mitchell-Strus thing. So Chris Fedor has this in his story last night about Max Strus sent a text late on Sunday night to the whole team saying, listen, enough is enough. Take care of business. We need the rest, and don't mess around. He said it in a little bit harsher language.
I bet he did, yeah.
But as part of the story that Chris reported, I don't think I saw this, but Donovan Mitchell flopped on one play and gave up a 3-pointer, and Strus lit into him.
Oh, really? I didn't see that. Wow.
Yeah, I had missed that. But how many teams have you seen, Terry, Cavs or otherwise, where you're in the playoffs and the team's best player is getting ripped into by somebody else on the team. Like, you don't see that every day, right? And I think if you're a Cavs fan, this isn't like LeBron and the LeBron heirs or whatever they used to
No.
call it when he came into the league. This is a team, and they respect each other. And when you have Max Strus calling out Donovan Mitchell for there's no flopping in the playoffs, it's like there's no crying in baseball, right? There's no flopping in the playoffs. That really tells you something about how this team is built from within, right? Do you get the same
And
sense?
also, you have to have the right guy to do it. And they know Strus plays hard all the time. And Strus now, you talk about sacrificing. I mean, this guy got a lot more shots and everything else in Miami than he's getting here. I mean, he really is the fifth wheel, starting with the other four.
And he's been
And
to the finals, and he knows what it takes. I
yes,
think that's
he
why guys
does.
listen to him.
It is. It absolutely is. And, of course, he's never committed a foul. I don't know if you've noticed that. Every foul, he argues every foul. He's never committed a foul. And, players kind of think roll their eyes at that, but he was brought in for that. And also, that's one of the things that Kenny mentioned, that he was worried when they traded Niang, because he said Niang had that edge and kind of that he liked. And he said that, Strus had it. He wanted to see who the second guy would be. He thought it would be good to have two of them. And Ty Jerome has got some of that in him. But you got to be good, to do that. And, Tristan if you watch on the bench, will talk to the guys. And Tristan has it because he does have the championship ring. And the other thing is, he lives in the gym there. I mean, he's playing pickup with everybody else, or all the young guys. And they also know that when Tristan plays, he will go when there are not bodies around. I mean, that's why they kept him. That's why Kobe brought him in, and why they kept him. There was a lot of thought given to chemistry with these guys from the moment they began to build the team, with Jared Allen coming in, who's very unselfish. And Kobe kept adding guys, where it's a special unit when they have to work on Evan Mobley to shoot more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's usually not in their DNA, but they know he's going to play the defense, and they're telling. I still saw Jarrett do it. I can't remember if it was game 3 or 4. He did it again. He's 3 feet from the basket. He threw it to somebody in the corner. It's like, will you please just take the 2 points? You've earned it.
Just dunk it.
Just dunk it and go down the other end. And that's why they're so enjoyable. I mean, I just run into casual fans who've just embraced this team, and they have been the last few years. They're just getting better. And I think the other thing, if you got on the train back when they even made the play-in tournament and won the 44 games, so when they went from 22 to 44 wins, and you've been stuck with them since, like Kathleen Thompson's one of the longtime fans, or some of the others, they just are so excited because you got to go along for the ride. And if you're not one of these fans that sit there, well, it's championship or nothing. If they didn't get the title away, just failed, Now, did you enjoy it? Are they good guys? Are they going in the right direction? All that stuff.
Yeah, and you watch some of these. They've had reality shows like on NBA TV where they have people. It's like a thing where you try to be an NBA GM and you pick the guys that you think will fit. Oh, analytics this and they're plus minus that. But you're right, Terry. The culture thing. I mean, Kobe Altman has to be very proud of the way the pieces have fit, and everybody's kind of sacrificed a little bit. Everybody's bought in, and there hasn't just you don't see, like, even on the court, the body language is positive. I think just Cavs fans have to be just so excited to see how this thing turns out, because
Well,
it's all there right now.
When your best player, that's like what they talk about the Guardians with Jose. When your best player, plays the hardest and leads the right way, and Donovan flopped the other day and got called on it. And by the way, didn't rebel about that either. He knew it. But when your best player plays like he wants to be there and is about the right stuff, which Donovan is, it just helps the coach so much. But they knew Donovan was a good guy. I remember talking to Kobe for a background thing after. He goes, we checked this guy out. He's been in a smaller market in Utah. Yeah, he may have wanted to go to New York, but he just, he delivered in Utah. They just weren't quite good enough to go any farther. He said, this is a guy you build with. This is a star. He says, we have to convince him to stay. And they did. But they felt that Donovan really was about winning and not about marketing. and that, yeah, they all want to market, but that wasn't the goal. And they sold winning to him, and then he re-upped. That was you go back to the summer when that is still is hilarious. I've seen some of these collages they put together of all these talking heads from the big meal. He'll never stay there. He wants to go to New York and all this. Well, I know among other things they had a whole thing. I don't think they even needed to pull it out, but they cast and prepared this whole thing of like, we can't even make a deal with the Knicks for you. The salary cap is too messed up or whatever. What they could do, trade us Jalen Brunson? We're not doing that. They're not doing that. But it never even got to that. It got to where by around the All-Star game, not of this season, the previous season, unless things were totally going to fall apart, in Donovan's mind, he was staying. In other words, they sold him on this, and then he sold others. It's so perfect in terms of a Cleveland team in the NBA.
All right. Anything else on the Cavs, Terry? I think we covered a fair amount of stuff.
When I watch this, I go back to that because I get some emails from fans too who, like me, love. There's a lot of things that reminded them of the Cavs of the Bryce Doherty, Nance era. You know what they missed? They missed Donovan Mitchell. They needed their own Donovan Mitchell. Some fans will say, well, they had Ron Harper and they traded him. I'll say Ron was good. Of course, Ron immediately had a major knee surgery after he left, but Donovan Mitchell's better. Donovan Mitchell, I've been saying this almost from his first year, is the second best player I've seen with the Cavs. And then when you add in the intangibles off the court, I mean, he clearly is way above. I don't want to hear about Kyrie Irving or some of these other guys. Look, I love Mark Price, but Mitchell's better, and they're fortunate to get him. They got him right in his prime, that middle 20s, right there. And so this is exciting. We'll see what comes next.
All right. Oh, I did want to mention, you remember the game, where the Cavs lost in the playoffs. LeBron threw his jersey, and you knew that was going to be it. That was one of those games for the Heat last night. When you watch Bam Adebayo with his head under a towel for the whole second half, and there was a quote from him after the game that I saw I think it was from the Associated Press. There's going to be a lot of changes this summer, Bam said. Just from my point of view, understanding how the guy with the silver hair works, just be prepared for that. So there's going to be
they're in a tough spot too. They are stuck in the middle. They don't Tyler Hero is a nice player, but he's not a superstar, and the Cavs showed how you can take him out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, look, I really like Darius Garland. He's not a superstar.
All right.
But Donovan Mitchell is.
And the pieces are fitting. It's been fun to watch. So, okay, well, the Cavs and their fans will be watching tonight to see the Pacers-Bucks Game 5 on Tuesday night. Pacers up 3-1, and the Cavs will get the winner of that. It looks like Saturday or Sunday will be Game 1 down at Rocket Arena. So we will know more by the end of tonight, potentially. So, all right, you ready to take a break, Terry?
Yes, I am.
All right, when we get back, we are going to get into this Browns draft. I want to ask you, Terry, who do you think is going to have the better NFL career? Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders? So we'll get into that and more when we come back on Terry's Talk.
There are people out there all across the country pushing boundaries to grow the game of golf. Like champion speed golfer Lauren Cupp, who plays faster than anyone else. And Will Lowry, whose work in the golf community inspires more kids to get into the game. As a champion partner of the Masters, Bank of America supports everyone determined to find out what's possible in golf and in life. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Bank of America N.A. member FDIC, copyright 2025, Bank of America Corporation, all rights reserved.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, we are back on Terry's Talkin'. I wanted to give a quick mention of Terry's newsletter. If you haven't signed up for it yet, go subscribe right now. Go to cleveland.com/Pluto. There's a blue bar at the top of the page, and you can subscribe right there. You get 2 weeks free. Terry's newsletter comes out every Wednesday at noon. and it is just jammed full of his thoughts on what's going on, a lot of interesting contract breakdowns that he does, fun stories, and it's a great way to reach Terry and interact with him through the newsletter email. So check it out, cleveland.com/Pluto, blue bar at the top. So, all right, Terry, how do you want to start with the Browns here? Do you want me to run through the picks real quick? Like, should I
Yeah,
just read them off just as a
sure.
reset for everybody, and then we can go from there, right? All right, so the Browns traded down from 2 to 5 and took Mason Graham, defensive lineman, Michigan. 2 picks in the second round. At 33, they took Carson Schlesinger from UCLA. He's a linebacker. The other second rounder was Quinshawn Judkins, the Ohio State running back. They got him at number 36. In the third round, they had 2 picks. They took Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end from Bowling Green, at 67, and Dillon Gabriel, quarterback from Oregon, at 94. They had 1 fourth rounder. They took Dylan Sampson, running back from Tennessee, 126 overall, and at 144, they kind of wrapped up their last picks and packaged it for number 144 and took Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado, which was probably the surprise story of the draft there.
Okay.
And
Well,
yeah, where do you want to start? There's a lot
all
to go
right.
through
Well,
here.
we'll talk about the trade. So they,
Okay.
I'm coming around on the trade, but I had my heart set on Travis Hunter, and because in the end, I really believe they passed on a great player. Now, this may work out for them. So, what do they have right now? They have Judkins from Ohio State. They have Mason Graham, and one of those picks was used to get Shedeur Sanders. So you basically traded for those 3 guys, and you do have the top pick for next year. It's pretty hard, at least on the paper side, to look at that and say this is a terrible trade, even though I wanted Hunter, because they got a lot. They got a lot for that. You got a defensive tackle who is a top 4 to 5 pick, but basically everybody's board. I wanted a power running back, and whether you wanted Henderson or Judkins. I mean, I had a hard time picking between the two. I kind of favored Henderson, but I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on which one of those guys you wanted?
Between the
2 Ohio
two
State
Ohio
guys.
State guys, I have. So I like them both, but they're so different. Judkins just felt like a Browns running back to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a little Henderson. If you look at his career at Ohio State, he got a little nicked up a lot. Like
Okay.
the injury thing, his first couple of years just really sprung up, and it was always something that, and again, guys get injured, I get it, but it just seems like Judkins is more durable and more of an AFC North type of back. I think that
Although, interesting thing on Henderson, to his defense, I've had some NFL people, and I've seen it mentioned scouting reports, that he picks up
oh,
blitzers and all that as well as anybody like they've seen.
absolutely, they're saying like
Yeah,
he's one of the best blocking running backs that has come out
like
in years and
ever or
years.
something. I mean, yeah, like that. I mean, that kind of which. So clearly the toughness is there, but as you said, the injury history. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was it. Just I think they're both going to have really good NFL careers, and I
Mm-hmm.
just think that Judkins makes more sense for the Browns and what they need, which is somebody a little more physical who can run between the tackles and just pound people. So
And
anyway, I
I'll
thought it
tell
was
you, the
like that.
guy they took, Sampson, is really an intriguing player too from Tennessee. And did he lead the SEC in rushing? I forgot. I think he did. So they got the guy who led the SEC in rushing this year, the guy who led the SEC in rushing last year, which is Judkins. And I like having the dual running backs because, as you said, they do get hurt. And if they're going to play the Stefanski style, regardless of who the quarterback is, and especially if they end up playing a rookie a lot, you better have these guys ready to run the ball and run it a lot. And they were not going to be able, with the group they had there, do it.
Yeah, another thing that I thought they did was they've got some special teams guys in this bunch that
Mm-hmm.
they can go to. I think Schlesinger is going to be really good on special teams.
Yeah.
You can put Judkins and Sampson out there to help. I think Fannin can play
Mm-hmm.
some special teams. He's got the speed. So I thought that was something that'll help them a little bit in terms of breaking these guys in. What else, Terry? There's a lot to go through here.
All right. Well, how good do you think Graham is?
I mean, I only know from what I've seen playing in the Big Ten, but I think fans were disappointed like you were when they traded down and didn't take Travis
Mm-hmm.
Hunter. But like, what if Mason Graham is the Browns' defensive version of Joe Thomas, right? where he plays 10 or 12 just really great years, maybe Hall of Fame caliber. Like people are talking, that's how good he can be and how disruptive he can be. I mean, that's a great pick for number 5, and you're getting a first rounder from that trade. I think that's what he could be. That's what they're hoping he'll be. He seems like he's got great technique and got a great motor, and they need that. They need somebody young who can kind of cause some trouble in the middle of that line.
I mean, I'm intrigued by Schlesinger. Now, he only started 1 year. Am I saying that right? The kid from UCLA?
Yeah,
Is it
Schlesinger.
Schlesinger? Yeah. He weighed only, I think, 228 during the season. At the combine, he was 242. Put on some weight. Led all the big Division I schools in tackles and also in, I believe, solo tackles. He was all over the place, and they need that. And he could play in the middle, and just some added speed and toughness to that defensive group. We mentioned 2 running backs, which they certainly needed to do. But I have a favorite player in this draft.
Who is it?
One guess.
Is it Harold Fannin Jr.?
Yes, it is.
All right.
I love tight ends that you can throw the ball to. And on top of it, the Bowling Green, a Mac guy. What do you catch, 112 or 117 passes? It's just outrageous. And he had big games against a couple of ranked teams. You put him and Njoku out there, again, in the old standard offense with these running backs, then you need average, smart quarterback play. And you have a chance to have a pretty good offense.
Fannin, when I was watching some of what he did this year, he did remind me of Dave Njoku a little bit in terms of the hurdling over defenders.
Yeah.
But Fannin has some wiggle to his game. Like he's juking guys, and he looks like he's a little bit running back when he's out there. He's got some moves and the quick feet, and I think Browns fans are going to like this guy, and he's productive.
Third round.
And he was the best player on Bowling Green's team, and the other team knew it every week.
Sure.
And to be able to produce like he did with those numbers that you mentioned, Terry, when they know the ball is coming to you, that just speaks to his ability to get open and get separation and make plays.
How about this? The Browns drafted 2 guys who were 0-star recruits coming out of high school. 0. Fannin was one. He was a safety at McKinley, Kenton McKinley, and Schlesinger was the other. He made UCLA as a walk-on. He's a bioengineering major. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it sounds hard. And so he, you have that, and that's kind of cool too, because we'll talk a little later on about the dangers of entitlement. But these guys don't seem to have it, and even though Junkins was a pretty big recruit in that, to me he is an AFC tough-minded back, and overall, they did some nice things in the draft. But what was missing from the draft in your mind?
Wide receivers.
That's true.
That was the big thing. What was missing for you?
No offensive linemen. You have these picks. I wonder if there was a discussion in the 4th round whether you take Sampson or you take a tackle or something that they like there.
Yeah. So you've written a lot, Terry, about the Browns paying the Deshaun Watson tariff, right?
Yep.
And this Browns draft to me felt like they knew they were still under the tariff, even though they had a first-round pick.
By the way, that predates the current president, whatever. This is not a political thing. I just want to make this clear.
Oh, yeah,
I started writing this in 2022.
Yeah,
I forgot who it was. I could have been like during the Warren Harding administration. It felt like it was so long ago. But because as somebody who does have a history, social studies, political science major and a English minor, I knew a terrorist with the Smoot-Hartley Act in 1930 or 1929 or 30, whatever that was, brought those in. So just wanted to establish this in my I don't do politics stance.
Yes. Yeah.
But you're correct. So I bring this up, by the way, at the press conference to Andrew Berry, and he says,
what did he say?
That had nothing to do with that. That's not it. It's just a great trade. It was just basically it was too hard to resist. And maybe that part is true, but see, this is always what happens when you have Watson hanging over you. You're always looking at, look, you're bringing in 14 quarterbacks. You're trying to add draft picks because you messed everything up around back in 2022.
Yes, and the state of this team coming off a 3-14 season, like if the Browns were 10-7 or something like that, I don't
Yeah.
think they trade the number 2 pick.
No, they don't.
I think they keep it. They take Travis Hunter and they're like, listen, we're going to try and boost this thing to the
Yeah.
next level. But like because they need to reacquire that draft capital they had and make up for the lost picks. And so they make this trade to get the Jaguars first rounder next year because they need it. Like
Well, somebody from the Browns said to me said, well, how long do you plan to mention the Watson stuff? And it's a half a joke. It's a running joke between he and I for a couple. I said, look, you had 3 years of no number ones. You finally got one back. I said, that means you had 3 years of possibly impact players not on rookie contracts. You finally got this here. So now you're picking up others. So I said, you're 3 years behind. He goes, well, I said, I think 2029. But it's almost like that if you really look at
what do they say, Terry?
26, 27, 28.
When you draft a guy, you have to give him 5 years to see if it works out.
But I mean, you're making up for the picks you lost. So you lost 3 years of picks. This is the first year you've got one. So next year you get 2. That's 27, and next year or 26, and next year is 27. And I threw a bonus year in.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the 22, 23, and 24 first-round picks for the Browns didn't exist. So like 5 years from that, at least.
Yeah, exactly, because of that. And also what you would have these good players on rookie contracts that either they would help your salary cap or you could possibly trade them.
All right. So anyway, my point is like they had to set this. This is not a 1-year plan here anymore. It's a 2-year plan. These guys, Stefanski and Angeberry have contracts, and they're going to try and fulfill them. And so they're trying to put this thing back on track for the next 2 or 3 years. So anyway, that's my one point. I was very taken aback, Terry, by the negative reaction by Browns fans by the Dillon Gabriel selection at number 94. And one of my first thoughts was, what if Dillon Gabriel had walked onto the stage and thrown a bunch of fake dollar bills up in the air, done the money symbol, strutted out there with a big smile? What if he basically did the Johnny Manziel thing, right? And if he was taken 20th?
Yeah.
Browns fans had no problem with the team drafting a 5'11 quarterback who had like this swagger and this kind of personality, and everybody loved the money Manziel stuff. Like Dillon Gabriel is built the same way, had the same kind of career in college, maybe even a little bit better.
Had a better career because it's longer.
Longer.
Yeah.
And doesn't do any of that stuff, but Browns fans didn't like the pick. I didn't understand it. The guy, given the success that Dillon Gabriel, I mean, Johnny Manziel, he beat Alabama. Well, Dillon Gabriel beat Ohio State. Like, I didn't see much difference, and I was very surprised in the difference in reaction and kind of how people were down on Dillon Gabriel.
They want a savior. That's what made Manziel. You go back to that time. He's going to save us. That's really what it was. They want a savior. And the latest, you're being rational. I'm being my friend Bishop Joey Johnson from the House of the Lord in Akron says, when your heart's broke, your head don't work right. He marks that into some sermons. So keep that in mind. When your heart's broke, your head don't work right. Stop me when I'm lying. And Browns fans are broken-hearted when it comes to quarterbacks because the last one they really could give their heart to and feel it's in good hands was Bernie Kosar. And even that was a heartbreaking thing when he was let go. So you have to go back 35 years.
And Joe Flacco was the last one, and that didn't last long at all. And Baker Mayfield was last before that, and that didn't last as long as it could have.
Yeah, it could have. I meant where a guy had a nice little run of several years.
No, that's to your point, Terry. Like the ones they did kind of put a little trust in, it didn't last very long. Yeah. So
for whatever reason.
From the Ted Lasso show, right? It's the hope that kills you, I guess is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, where do you go there? I mean, Dillon Gabriel, can't remember, was Tyler Schwall taken before him or after him? To me, they were all kind of in that same close your eyes, pick a name. And then, of course, by the way, if you listen to the Browns, that means they had Dillon Gabriel rated ahead of Shedeur Sanders.
Yes. All right, so here's my theory, and I want to run it past you about the Gabriel Sanders thing. All right, this was not a great quarterback draft, and the Browns really like Dillon Gabriel for where they got him. And when they got down to 144 and Sanders was still there, they had him graded to the point where it's like, all right, we have to do this now.
Where
Like,
did they have him grade? I want to know this. Because this will be another eternal question. Like, who really? Now, we know Jimmy Haslam is the one that told Andrew Berry to pick that phone up again and give Watson everything he wanted from the no trade cost to all the money. That's an ownership thing.
right.
And we'll take the heat. But the guy that really pushed hard in the beginning for Watson is the thing we'll probably never really know because they'll bury it. Just like we'll never really know if they had Dillon Gabriel rated ahead of Shedeur Sanders, why? What was it based on? And then, as you said, then what happened then after that? So go ahead.
Okay, so my point is everything is geared toward finding the next long-term quarterback here. They have invested a 94th pick and a 144th pick in two guys who might work out and might not. They will know more a year from now, and so will all the fans and us about these two guys. If they don't feel good about the guys they have, the draft capital investment was not all that great, and they have 2 first-rounders next year. Plus, they could offer their first rounder from 2027 if they wanted to go after somebody in the top 3 of the draft, right?
Why don't you trade 4 or 5 first rounders? It worked out so well the last
Well,
time.
I'm just saying
now I'm with
they,
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they want to go after an Arch Manning or Drew Aller, who I'm a big fan of next year, like they are in position to do that now. Plus, they have 2 young quarterbacks with some potential that they can get into the system, see what they think, and let these guys play some football. So that's the plan, right?
Yeah, you have that's from their point. Yeah. Now
Yes.
you get a bunch of challenges coming in. We'll look ahead first and then we'll look back. So looking ahead, Shedeur Sanders is going to walk into that quarterback room. In some ways, he's going to be guilty until proven innocent. By that, I mean he's going to be walking in where these guys are going to look at him. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, we paid our dues in different ways to be here. And everybody's paid all attention to you, and you're a 5th round pick. And the word is you don't like to prepare. You're going to have to prove it. And they're not going to like it. That's why the Browns will have to figure out how to handle the PR in this thing, because the media is going to want to talk to Shedeur. They're not going to, even though if he weren't there, Flacco, Pickett, etc. there, and these guys, it's going to be a fascinating thing. There is a dynamic that goes on, and I mean, they want Flacco to mentor, Flacco, although I understand where Flacco, it makes it sound like he doesn't want to mentor, but I know where he's coming from, because in some ways I'm the old guy on our staff here. And when it comes to writing or whatever, I kind of have casual conversations with some of the younger writers. And a lot of times I find reasons to encourage them. Then I'm looking to see, do they want to talk about it or not? And the ones that do, we will. But I'm not going to come up to somebody and say, hey, man, that lead just stunk. I'm not going to do that. Now, somebody I've got built a relationship with, organically is the word that, they love to use now. Fine. But otherwise, I got my own stuff to do. And so this is going to be, I think, and I would love to hang around in some of those early meetings. I really would. That would be great. Tommy Reese in the room, and possibly, Kevin. It just the personalities and where they came from. Joe Flacco's won a Super Bowl. Joe Flacco's won a Super Bowl MVP. He's also won Comeback Player of the Year just in 2 years ago. Kenny Pickett is fighting for his NFL life. This is a chance to redefine his whole career. Dillon Gabriel is a guy who's been told he's too small ever since he was small, and he's still small. And he's going to be, they think he's nobody. I've even heard Nathan Gazer or somebody on the Browns thing say, he's got a chance to be another Case Keenum. Nobody wants to hear you got a chance to be another Case Keenum. No disrespect to being Case Keenum. Dillon Gabriel, who started 65 games in college and all this, got as high his, aspirations higher than Case Keenum. And then you have Shedeur, the coming out of the prime time marketing brand. And so I'm going to ask you, what do you think of him as a quarterback?
I don't think he has a great arm. I don't think he throws a great long ball. I think his stats were probably better than they should have been because he was throwing to arguably the best receiver in the country, who was playing both ways. I think that Travis Hunter's caught a lot of balls that maybe weren't ideally thrown. But that said, I think he's got the size and he's got the pocket presence. I don't think he played against a lot of great competition in college. And I don't I was watching a lot of the chalkboard behind the scenes stuff they showed there's a lot of clips flying around from the behind the scenes NFL stuff that they do, inside the AFC North or whatever it's called. And we don't know how these guys performed on the whiteboard when the coach is like, all right, tell me what your favorite play is. And what if this defense changed from cover 4 to cover 2? What would you do? And it's we don't know a lot of that about what's going on behind the scenes either. And the coaches and GMs do. So getting back to your original question, I think he could be fine. I think he could probably start in this league. I don't know if it's going to be here, but that's the thing, Terry. If it doesn't work out, just let him go. There's a lot of fifth round picks who get let go, and one of them the Browns just traded for Kenny Pickett, right? So it's not like the franchise is hanging on either of these guys.
No, and that's a good point. I mean, this is not like all the draft capital for because I got Watson in this. I mean, I have to admit, I wrote my column about him. I'm weary of quarterback drama, and that's why I said basically I don't think he's that good. I think he'll be okay, maybe, and I just didn't want to go through it. But I do, it's not like a number one pick for Manziel or this. Now, a couple things on when you look at Shedeur. Number one is 28% of his completions were screen passes. That really helped his completion percentage. Number two, never took a snap under center. Number three, he only had 3 plays with 2 tight ends on the field. 75% of the time or something, they had 4 receivers. Now, and number 4 was he basically, I think, almost never had a play out of the huddle either. So these are things they're going to have to learn when he comes to the situation. Now, does he want to? And will he? I think the big mistake was that this is a guy who played for his father through high school. His father was the offensive coordinator when he was in high school, and then played for his father with 2 college teams. Perhaps there is somebody like that was in the draft once upon a time, but I don't remember that.
I can't think of it, especially not a quarterback.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, that, and then the father, Dion, becomes the agent basically, and completely misreads the room. Totally. Expecting his son, because it's prime time in this. All right, how much money was the NIL deal that Shedeur Sanders had for this season?
I don't know the answer to that.
I do.
Million? 5 million?
Keep going.
8 million?
It was 6.5.
Oh, okay.
All right. By the way, along those lines, some of this stuff's going to be in my newsletter. Quentin Ewers, Ohio State, Texas. He had another year of eligibility left. He could have probably transferred because Texas has what's his name, Arch Manning, So, but he had a $2 million NIL deal with Texas. They said he could have probably added another $1 million to transfer somewhere else. Well, he goes into the draft He goes in the 7th round. I forgot who took him. I think Miami or somebody did. Uh,
I think so.
So basically, the entire package, for example, that Shedeur will sign with the Browns will be about $4 million or about $350 guaranteed. Is less than what he just got paid. And the entire package that Ewers will, at a 7th round pick, will get about $150 guaranteed and a long-term deal, is like cap fare for him. I mean, what he was making before. I mean, it is like, act like. So isn't this interesting? What's happening now? These quarterbacks come out. They're coming from this exalted position, and I mean, the quarterbacks always had their butt kissed and everything else on campus. And the boosters were taking care of them, but no, not like this taken care of.
Well, and we saw this really early, Terry, when I was on Drew Aller, right after the season ended, or their season ended at Penn State, and he announced very quickly that he was going back to Penn State for exactly the reason you're talking about. I think they bumped his NIL deal up to 258, whatever,
Sure.
8 million, whatever it was, and he's like, you know what? I love it here. We got a chance to win it all next season. I'm going back for one more year. And
take the money, because and by the way, this will be good in some ways for the NFL, because I think the more stars these guys get in college, the better. I really do. I mean, that's one of the reasons they went and took Dillon Gabriel, because he had the 65 starts in that. Now, what I also think hurt. By the way, this is interesting. There was another Sanders in the draft.
Shiloh, right?
Yeah, didn't get picked. Shiloh has hired Drew Rosenhaus now to be his agent, and Drew cut a deal to get Shiloh to go to the Dolphins, I believe it was, Tampa Bay, he's a safety, as kind of a camp guy, and got him a few bucks. If they had a real agent, I think Sanders would not have had so many of these stories come out that, like, he went to New York and they sent him an offense for an install and he just wasn't prepared for it, and was just kind of shocked that they were asking him all these questions and things. Flip side, story John Dorsey told me. They liked Patrick Mahomes' athleticism. They checked out his character, good family, the whole thing. But they wanted to know, because they play such a wild style. Was it Texas Tech, correct? Mahomes from Texas.
Yep.
What will he be like with Andy Reid, the offensive genius? They brought him in. They sent him some stuff. They put him on the whiteboard. And Dorsey told me 10 minutes into it, he's looking at Reid, and I think, was it Chris Ballard? I think is their other guy that was their other player. And they're like smiling. They're almost laughing. Go, this kid's got it. He did the whole thing. He knows. He goes, we got to get him. See, that, had he failed that, they probably don't trade up for him. And if he wasn't wired in that direction, he wouldn't be Patrick Mahomes. As great an athlete as he is. I mean, he's 5 times the athlete of Shedeur Sanders, or 99% of the quarterbacks in the NFL. But he's smart, and he's got good character. And he was a worker. And so this is what's going to be with Shedeur. He's got a chance to listen and change, or, as you said, goodbye.
Yeah, and Terry, the thing you're talking about with Mahomes, I think that's what the Browns are angling for next year in the top 10, is like, all right, if there's a guy like that we just fall for and think that he's the one, like, we got to have the tools to do it. And so they're in position where they can do it.
But it's fascinating. But I thought of that story when I heard about the Shedeur stuff. And I remember Dorsey, I forgot how we got on the subject. I think I just asked him one day about trading up for him. And we were just kind of like two guys talking, one day after practice.
Yeah.
He goes, let me tell you the story. And he said, I'm not saying it's just me. I mean, we're interested in him. He goes, but we're in this room, and all three of us are going, look at this. I mean, it was like Tom Brady or somebody you brought in. Go, he's the package. Someone's like, don't let him out the door. Because Andy Reid's already got, 5 plays in his head before the kid even leaves the room of what I could do with this guy. Because he had Alex Smith at the time, who was a little bit mobile. But now this is a whole other level of what I could do offensively.
Yeah, and then they moved heaven and earth to move up in the draft again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, we got a few emails here, Terry, about the Browns.
Good.
But who do you think will have a better career, Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders?
I don't know. I'm going to make you answer your question. You answer it first.
I think Gabriel's going to have a better career. I think he's
Oh!
yeah, I think he's had more exposure to more different stuff, just like you were discussing.
Yes,
And I think
yeah.
he's gonna acclimate to the NFL a lot faster. They might both have really good careers. I just think Gabriel's on a little bit of a faster track because of his experience.
Interesting. I heard Mel Kiper interview today on the air, and he said, I have to check this. He said that in Shedeur's career in college, he's had 4 different offensive coordinators. Well, he had 2 the first year at Colorado, I know, because he had the former Kent State coach, Sean Lewis,
Yep,
and then Pat Shurmur.
the former Browns.
But I thought Shurmur was doing it this year for them.
He was, yep.
But I don't know at Jackson State who did it or what.
Well, he might have had 2 different. He was there for 2 years, so he might have had
So
one
could have had 2.
year. Yeah,
Could have had 2 of them there too. Of course, that's the NFL though. You get different offensive coordinators all the time. That's part of the deal. So I'm one of the things that hurts Shedeur, and I heard Greg Cosell say this, and he is the NFL quarterback guru, NFL Films quarterback guru, well respected. He says Shedeur, when he feels pressure, has a tendency to drop back and back and back. And next thing you know, you're 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And that's a tough way to go.
Well, that pretty much describes a lot of his life at Colorado because of the offensive line problems. Especially
it was
the first
terrible.
year at Colorado. It was brutal. So I'm really interested to see how this all shakes out. I think just let them get in, just treat them like rookies, right? Like you're talking about, and
they have to, and that'll be a real struggle for the Browns because the media is going to want this guy, and the primetime family has this brand; they like to sell it.
They do, but like I think we've been talking about the Browns aren't going to put up with it. I hope not. So
I mean, I will say Barry made a lot of comments in that direction. I wish they'd added an offensive lineman. You mentioned a receiver. What did you think of was it Deontay Johnson they brought in?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like the Browns have kind of tried to just patch together. They've got a great receiver if they're number 1, and then they're trying to patch together the rest of it. Every year it seems like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know. It's hard for fans to get excited about anybody that they're bringing in at this point.
In general, a receiver that is tossed away by the Steelers usually is done.
Yeah. So I know
that's kind of the way that goes.
We'll see where it goes. So I want to read these emails real quick, and we'll move on then to the Guardians maybe. All right, this one is from Bill Border, and Bill's from Moorhead, Kentucky, and he says, "Hey Terry, longtime listener, reader, and Cleveland sports fan. I'm trying to give this draft a chance. The trade, the additional draft picks, then to go and waste a 3rd round draft pick on a shrimp QB. This is a Cody Kessler redux. It just seems that they never learn. I truly think it's Deep Podesta pulling the strings.
Kevin Hogan if we're going to go there.
It just seems like this franchise cannot get out of its own way for trying.
Well,
and if they want a new cash box stadium, pay for it yourselves." All right, that's Bill Border.
Well, I'll tell you, I hear a lot of that.
The next one's from Ron B. And Ron says, "Hello. In my honest opinion, the Browns should have traded Myles Garrett for additional cap space and draft picks and gone all in on a total rebuild targeting next season's crop of college QBs. Even getting 1 or 2 players in this draft, they will still be a mediocre team, 6 to 8 wins at best." You might be right, Ron. 6 or 8 wins might be what they are, but that might be enough. So to keep them.
Well, I mean, all right. If they go 8-9 and they end up, you find Kenny Pickett is good. You find in other words, you end up with a quarterback playing by the end of the year that you think is pretty good. I'm not saying great, just pretty good, which then will allow you still, if you want to draft your quarterback, but at least you feel like you've got something there. I think, and the reason they brought in Joe Flacco was they want Pickett to play. I don't care what they say or whatever. They want Pickett. Pickett's there. We think this is our reclamation project. He's going to get a first shot at it. But they also don't want another 3-14 disaster. And if it goes there, they can put Joe in there, and they know Joe will run that offense, and they will at least look like an NFL team. I mean, because the truth is, when you watch them last year, the offense did not even look like an NFL offense most of the time, whether it's Deshaun couldn't do anything. And I love Jameis because he was just sort of entertaining, but it's like he couldn't help himself. It's like he couldn't declare victory. It's almost like a guy that I don't gamble or whatever, but it's like he has a winning hand, in his hand, and he wants 3 more cards. He wants to make sure he has enough cards till he goes bust, and that's how it was. I've got this guy open 12 yards away, but I'm trying one. I know it's double coverage down there, but I could just fire one in there 55 yards and see if Jerry Jeudy can catch it.
All right, here's our next email from Dan Huff, and Dan is from Lawrenceville, New Jersey. He says, it was the morning after the much ballyhooed first round of the draft, and I was trying to absorb the Browns trade and subsequent selection of Graham, who I'm sure is a fine player and young man. To that end, I turned to Terry's article to see what his thoughts were about what transpired, hoping it would help process what the Browns did. Well, let's just say it failed to talk me off the ledge. As context, I was 11 when the Browns beat the Colts for the title in '64. I've been a loyal and devoted fan through so much pain and disappointment, but this, by comparison, not the worst of it, but for some reason, it feels like the last straw. Sure, one player can only make so much of an impact, and Graham may be a good player, but the aimless arrogance, the deafness to the fans' desperate cry for something to be excited about, the persistent and mistaken belief that they're somehow smarter than everyone else, when his history clearly shows otherwise, has become too much. For my remaining years, I will be better off turning my back because I don't have the time to hold out desperately for a brighter future that this franchise is capable of realizing. Trust me, this makes me sad, and it would seem that Terry agrees. So that's Dan. Dan is down on the Browns, Terry.
I understand that, and I just have a hard time passing up on greatness. And that's
what you saw in Travis Hunter.
Yeah, that's what I did, and you can go there, and what I saw in Travis Hunter too is remember how Mike Evans. Is that who it was, a receiver that was Johnny Manziel's receiver?
At Texas A&M, yeah.
How he made Johnny so good and leaping over people and that. Well, that's a lot what Travis Hunter did for Shedeur. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but having a guy like that, having greatness to throw to, and I guess I was just so excited about Hunter because I'm thinking, you get him in there. And you get him in a receiver where he's really concentrating on being a receiver. Yeah, you could help out in the secondary because the NFL people I was reading said that he was kind of freelancing his routes. Even it's not something he concentrated on, and you could he oozed talent. 96 catches, 3 drops, and I've never covered a draft in my life where they said the best offensive player and the best defensive player in the draft was the same player.
Yeah, you never see that. So
probably never see it again either.
Yeah, probably not. So I've seen this on the internet a little bit, Terry, and I just wanted to share it real quick before we move on. But what if this was the Browns draft? All right. How do you think fans would have reacted? 5, Mason Graham, 33, Shedeur Sanders, 36, Schlesinger, 67, Judkins, 94, Fannin, 126, Dillon Sampson, and 144, Dillon Gabriel. And the Jags' 2026 first-round pick. If the Browns had taken Shedeur Sanders at 33 overall, and the fans would have been like, oh, they got their quarterback, and they didn't even need to go back into the first round to do it. This is awesome. I think that would have been the reaction, and they would have gotten the same guys at the same spots.
Yeah,
it's in a different order. What do you think of that?
Probably they certainly would have felt better about it. But I also think when the fans were watching Sanders drop, they're going, "What don't we know that they know?"
Yeah,
these guys are paid to know stuff. Yes, they like they always say, "Well, Tom Brady went in the 6th round." Nobody ever said Tom Brady was going in the 2nd round. The question was, would he be drafted at all? That was really, you look at this other guy. Well, Brock Purdy went in the 7th round. Well, nobody ever said he was going to go anywhere. He was like, his agent was already working the phone so he could get one of those undrafted free agent contracts. This is why this is just so unprecedented. And then it's like, are they going to somehow mess this up? I guess that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, maybe that. Of course, if they'd have had Travis Hunter, then I think people would be even more excited.
All right.
All right. I'm going the other way.
All right.
You keep Travis. You got the 33rd pick. You take Junkins. then you go down and you kind of pick. Well, you don't have 36, right? So then you go into the other rounds, and you start picking. So you still take Fannin, and then
Samson would have been there.
you take
Gabriel
Samson.
would have
You
been
want
there.
another Gabriel would have been there. Yeah. The only thing you would be missing would be Schlesinger, and you would be missing the first round pick next year. Now, the first round pick is a big thing to be missing.
Oh, my head's spinning.
Yes.
Anyway, we got a lot of time to talk about this draft class as we go along here. The Browns will be having rookie minicamp very soon. I think it's this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll be getting into all that. I think we're good with the Browns. All right, you want to get into the Guardians here, Terry?
Yeah.
It's been a weird week, and I feel like the team is starting to slide back to maybe where we were discussing them a year ago with the pitching struggles. The starting staff is putting a lot of pressure on the bullpen, which isn't all that healthy now, and it's rough.
Yeah, but they just called up Vince Velasquez, who had a 5.6 ERA in AAA and did not pitch last year because he had elbow injury. And
does this year feel the same to you in terms of struggles, or different, or better or worse, or what are you feeling about where
I was feeling better about Logan Allen and Gavin Williams to the last start. So the Logan Allen, they didn't help him the other day. But I forgot how many errors they made behind him. But he wasn't great. But look, you got to help Logan Allen. You got to catch the ball behind him. I'm neutral. I'm not all that bummed out. I want to see how the Clase thing goes. I just think that's so important. It was interesting they pitched him in the 8th inning. I'm okay with that. He needs to get some success, and they want to have him move in. And maybe his arm was tired. I'm very serious. He may be. These guys, generally, when a guy has been successful for a long time and suddenly he's not, especially a pitcher, he's hurt. And it could be minor hurt or major hurt, but he's hurt. And especially to me, Clase is he's a warrior. You watch him, he never complains about, like when there's a bad call, he'll kind of turn around. You can just see him like gritting his teeth and trying to take in a deep breath, and he gets back up on the mound. A guy messes up behind him, he doesn't glare at him. Now, granted, he doesn't do a lot of interviews, but when he has, it's always interesting though when the interpreters go doing this interview. I always wish I really knew the Spanish, because I'm not saying there, but they probably soften maybe things at times. But I just think he's a real pro, and that stuff that was happening to him, he probably had a tired arm. And I'm really pulling for him. He wants to play here. He signed that contract real quick. And I just remember being in spring training. This is the day after he signed that extension. And his family must have knew this was coming. There was like 12 of them around him afterwards. And they were just having a little party. And you suddenly realize, I wonder how many of these people that Emmanuel's carrying, And it just made me like him. And he was so gracious. I was watching him with them. I have no idea what they're saying. It was all in Spanish, but it's like, it just made me feel good. I remember when Carlos Santana signed his first extension with the Tribe, and he had a guy, his last name was Moda, I forgot his first name, who was like his agent. And we were talking afterwards, and I said, well, I don't blame you guys for signing the contract, but I know that you're going to get ripped because of that. He said, those people that do that, they have no idea what these guys off the island, as he called them, how many people they're taking care of from back home, the good they're doing back home. Carlos is a great kid, and that's some things you said, what can we do for my family in here? Of course, that was like 15 years ago or whatever it was. And it was the same thing. You see these guys, and their heart's in the right place. And I want them to pitch well and pitch for a long time, not only for Cleveland, but just because I just saw a glimpse of the human person there.
So the it's not the only thing with Class A. We're also
Yeah.
seeing we've been talking about Tristan McKenzie, and just to bring people up to speed real quick, if they haven't been watching this, he was put on waivers. He was not picked up, so the Guardians are sending him to Columbus. He's accepted assignment there, and he gets to keep his salary after doing that, which is good for him. But again, 11.12, I think, was his ERA with 4 strikeouts, 7 walks,
it was
5
awful.
and 2/3 innings
Yeah,
out of the
it was
bullpen.
awful.
So
It was awful.
they're hoping that he can go down there and kind of find his form and get back to
pitch him.
some semblance of what he was. So
I mean, I think they're going to start him, but I really would like to see them follow the bullpen formula with him. The John Hart formula of pitch and a half. One good pitch, the other pitch, and just hit the glove.
simplify.
Put the glove there. Yeah, put the glove there. Hit the glove.
All right. Well, the Guardians, even with having Austin Hedges and I think Will Wilson pitch and on back-to-back
Will
days,
Wilson, remember, he made his debut on this podcast two weeks ago.
Right. Yeah,
I threatened all of Cleveland with Will Wilson being called up.
But even with all the troubles, they're still only 2.5 games out of first. They're 15-13. We got an email here from Neil in Jamestown, New York. Terry, frequent writer to us on this podcast, and he says, "Hey Terry, even if Will Brennan can't hit lefties at all, playing him every day in right would be better than the unproductive mess they have going on right now. What do you think?" I was looking up Will Brennan's stats. It looks like he's hitting about 286 with a 718 OPS right now. I don't know. Any thoughts on Will Brennan?
Well, I know what they're thinking, which is that Nolan Jones has a bigger upside than Will Brennan. And the problem is, if Will Brennan were a right-handed hitter, I think they probably would call him up because Big Christmas is still swinging at pitches that aren't even in the same zip code sometimes. But they have Will Wilson. And I was talking in a background talk with Chris Antonetti like last week, and it's like, we really kind of like him. I mean, we drafted him, we scouted. It's like this is their guy. Of course, this is rummage sale style scouting, and I get it. If you do yard sales or whatever, you kind of look at that thing. Is that thing really old or is it an antique? You kind of have to figure out. You knock the rust off it and see what you got. So I get where they're coming from, but Brennan, I actually thought Brennan was going to be better than he has been. I was very high on him coming up through the minors.
This season, Terry, adequate. I just pulled his numbers. Yeah, he's batting 158 against lefties.
And in the minors?
And 314 against righties.
Oh, God.
And his OPS against lefties is 316, and his OPS against righties is 805. So
he's like hopeless. He's hopeless against lefty. He shouldn't be. It's not like he's got a huge swing or anything. I don't get it.
All right.
How's that for great detailed analysis?
Yeah, we're cheering the Guardians fans up here.
But you look at this. But remember, they have Will Wilson. But look, in the end, Nolan Jones did in 2023. He played like a possible guy who, had a chance to be, a borderline star. He stole 20 bases. He hit 20 homers. The thing that was interesting about that year, now he went down, they traded him to Colorado do you see what my guy Brito broke his thumb. He's out for 2 months. Yeah. Bummed me out. So they traded traded Nolan Jones for Brito. And then he goes and they send him to Colorado Springs. And he came out, he was hitting like 350 or something crazy. But it's like, okay, that's the Coast League. Everybody hits at Colorado Springs because the altitude is high and the balls don't break. But then he gets called up to Colorado, and granted, you have the home thing, but I did the splits home and away. They were almost identical. He hit the same home and away, and then I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Then last year he had the back problem, so we will see.
All right, well, the Guardians are finishing up their series with the Twins, which runs through Thursday, and then they're on the road. They're playing 3 at Toronto this upcoming weekend, and then they are at Washington before returning to play the Phillies at home on May 9th. So, All right, I think we got some emails here to wrap up with, Terry.
Okay.
We've been asking people to send in memories of opening day and also listening to games. So we've kind of got some of those left. I think we did not have time to get the Foundry Guy's email last week, so I wanted to make sure we got Foundry Guy in here. And Foundry Guy says, as a kid, my family listened to the Browns every Sunday of the season on the radio. Then black and white TVs introduced us to my all-time favorite Brown, number 44, Leroy Kelly. I live near Cincinnati, but for several years had Browns season tickets until Belichick benched Bernie. Seems like
There we
only
go.
yesterday, the guy sitting in front of us was always hollering, Michael Dean, every time Perry made a play behind the line. When Modell took his team to Baltimore, I became a diehard Ravens fan. Along with
Mm-hmm.
my wife and kids, we enjoyed the Inner Harbor and several Ravens games. But when Cleveland got the new Browns, my wife and kids went back to the Browns. I stayed loyal to my Ravens, but now also root for any team Joe Flacco plays for. If Joe is the opposing QB, no doubt I will root for Flacco over my beloved Ravens. So this should be like the best year ever for my Browns loving family. Now let's bring back Nick Chubb and have some fun watching him thrive again. When Flacco ran this offense in Baltimore, Justin Forsett came back from a teaching job and dominated. Alex Collins looked like a Pro Bowler. Bring the fun back to Cleveland, sign Chubb, and give him his deserved chance. Let's give Cleveland some more experiences like the Thursday night win over the Jets. And that's from Foundry Guy. So thanks for that, Foundry Guy. Appreciate that.
I really think the Browns don't want to bring Chubb back and cut him. I believe that, and they thought he would just be, maybe so-so at best, and that's why they went in the direction with the two young guys and Jerome Ford. I think they figured they got between these three guys, they're going to put together a really good running back room. That's their view.
Yeah,
and that might be accurate.
Yeah, and if they do bring him back, he could be a short down back, and they'll see how he looks. He's certainly working out hard, I'll tell you that.
Somebody told me, too, the problem there is a guy like that, you would want him to play special teams, but you can't have Chubb play special teams.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's
the third or fourth guy in the room.
Like Sampson could play special teams, for example.
Right.
If Junkins is starting, that kind of. Ford's played some special teams. That, by the way, I called in my column. I called Barry out on this, where he said, well, we drafted two quarterbacks. Well, we drafted two running backs too. Yeah, but a quarterback's not going to play special teams. So please, just don't go down that road.
That's true. All right, and here's our last one. It's from Bill Knott. I hope I got your last name right, Bill. And Bill says, Terry, as one from Parma, what is your favorite Parma sports memory? You've talked about growing up in Parma, Terry, on Westminster Drive. Did you used to go to high school games back in the day, or what do you remember about sports in Parma?
Well, we did. My dad took me to Benedictine games because of that. He was playing wiffle ball in my backyard on Westminster Drive. Yeah, we just would play there. There's a little shrubs, and it was probably 100 feet away or whatever, and then try and hit the wiffle ball over my dad would throw it to me, try to hit it over the shrub in that little yard. The other thing is, in the garage we had, my brother, my dad throwing tennis balls when I was batting, try to hit it, out of there. We had our own little batting cage that way. So it was more of the family thing than going to Parma games or whatever, because we were a Benedictine family.
So did you have like a short field to once out when you were playing wiffle ball? Was one of the fences shorter than the other one in terms of batting righty or lefty?
Well, it seems like if you pulled it, you hit it off the side of the garage. I forgot what that was. I think you just kept running, until somebody got you out. And then the little shrubs are like in center field, and then over to the right field was the neighbor's garage. I mean, this is like, if you've ever been to like place Parma or any of these little developments, from the old days, post World War II, these houses are close together now, and there was always a fear that even with the wiffle ball, you're going to break somebody's window, which we never did, but we did hit the window. But, even going back, this is the guy who hit I think my actual career batting average is 223, and I think I've jacked it up to 232 now when I tell the story at Benedictine.
Next year it'll be 243, right?
Yeah, which matched my slugging percentage, because I can't say I ever had an extra base hit. But it just shows even back then I didn't have enough OPS oomph, which nobody knew what it was. And he opes enough to break a window with a wiffle ball.
All right. Well, thanks for all the great emails today to all of our listeners. And again, if you want to hit us with any thoughts, questions, comments, stories about sports in years gone by or whatever, hit us at sports@cleveland.com and just put Terry's Talkin in the subject line, and we will try to get it on an upcoming podcast. So, all right, I think that's going to do it, right, Terry? You got anything else?
That is it.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week. We'll have game 1 of the new Cavs series. We'll have more Guardians, and I think we'll have some Browns football to talk about probably. So we will talk to you then on Terry's Talkin.